Good afternoon. This is Wednesday, March 16th at 4:30, and this is a meeting of the Finance Committee. To my left is Mr. Doug Tremblay. To my right is Mr. John Schweizer, and I'm Tom Kendall, Chairman of the committee. We do have two items to come before this committee today, so Mr. Titterton, will you please brief us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is with regards to the annual tax incentive review council meeting that we're required to have. They reviewed 8 enterprise zone agreements, all of which are at or exceeding their requirements, 2 of which are due to expire, and so the companies have asked for those to be retired at this time. In your packet, you have a list of those agreements, and we are asking that you pass this by emergency legislation, as the information is due to the state by the end of March, and we are always in an emergency situation because it takes time for the companies to provide the information to us. So that is with regards to the enterprise zone agreements. The other part that the TIRC met on is to review our tax increment financing agreement at town, and that also is performing as, or actually a little better than anticipated, and so the TIRC is recommending that council accept and approve their recommendations and continue the TIF out there. Again, that would be emergency legislation. Those would have to be 2 different pieces of legislation related to these activities.
Okay, so first would be the retirement.
No, the first would be the enterprise zone agreements.
Okay.
The second one would be the TIF.
TIF, okay. Mr. Schweizer, do you have any?
No, we do this every year.
Comments, questions?
As everyone's in an agreement and everything is on board with what they say, their performance is accurate, I have no questions.
Okay. Anyone in the audience? Mr. Tremblay?
I'm fighting for proceeding on both issues.
Okay.
I'm good with emergency legislation on both.
Okay.
And emergency legislation.
All right, let's go forward then with that.
Okay.
Very good. The second item is with regards to the Troy Community Improvement Corporation, and asking council to authorize a lease between the city and the CIC for the Marina building property. So by way of a little background, the Ohio Constitution, Article 8, Section 13, under economic development, allows for us, political subdivision, to designate a corporation to, among other things, lease property, structures, etc., for industry, commerce, distribution, and research activities. Back in 1973, ordinance number 42, Troy City Council authorized and created the CIC. In the 70s and the 80s, the CIC was very active, authorizing and coordinating 19 different industrial revenue bonds. It was very active in economic development back then. The last bond that it was active in was 1987. Shortly after that, the rules, laws changed regarding industrial revenue bonds, and they kind of went out of favor. The CIC, which is made up of 13 members, 6 of whom are city representatives, including the mayor, President Baker, Mr. Kendall, Councilman Phillips, myself, Mr. Dando, and that's 6. And there's 6 of us on there along with them. We do meet annually to keep the CIC active, but there are very little assets, and there's been no activity since 1987. We have been talking about, as we move forward with prospects for marina lease, what the best avenue, best mechanism is to use to be able to fashion a lease that is favorable to the city as well as the tenant, and their long-term and our long-term vision, rather than going under strictly sterile, sealed, formal bids, opening them up, and then having to go best and lowest and best, or in this case, highest and best. So we discussed with the CIC at their meeting on March, what was it, the 11th? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 11th. The prospect of entering into a lease with the CIC for $1 per year at the Marina building, with the following provisions. Number one, it would be a 5-year lease with the potential for 2 5-year extensions. Number two, the CIC would bear no financial or management responsibilities out at the building. It would be, again, a $1 per year lease. The CIC would have financial and management obligations when there is a sublease, so that the idea being that the sublease would pass those responsibilities off on an ultimate tenant. But they would not, the CIC would not be able to unilaterally sublease the building without the city administration signing off on that as well. So it would be a 3-way lease agreement with CIC, city, and a retail tenant or tenants. At the March 11th meeting, the CIC did unanimously agree to enter into the lease in concept. Some wording that they wanted to have fine-tuned a little bit. Mr. Kerber has worked on that language, and so we do have some new draft language for them to look at. This is a typical use of the CIC. It's one that, frankly, in the future we hope to utilize more often, to hold, lease, and to control property, especially redevelopment property as it comes up. Gives us more flexibility. We have the benefit of confidentiality, flexible negotiations, but still some control by the city so that our interests are protected. So we are recommending, also by emergency legislation, that council authorize a lease between the CIC and the city. The reason for the emergency is that we are actively talking with several tenants. We do have a couple that are very serious prospects, one of whom would like to sign a lease as quickly as possible, although there's some coordination issues because we could have multiple tenants in that building. I think that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I will say too, as a member of that committee, it's the right thing to do. As Patrick said, it gives us much more flexibility as a city, and we don't have to worry about the being able to make everything so public. There's some confidentiality between the ultimate leasers and ourselves. So, Mr. Swayzer, any questions?
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to lease the Marina building to CIC for $1. The tenant's going to come in and pay a rent to who?
Us. To us. I apologize. That was another condition, that any sublease, the revenues, the fees, the rents, they would come to the city. Now, they may flow through the CIC, whichever accounting-wise works the best, but ultimately that money comes back to us. There was some discussion at the CIC meeting about the possibility of the CIC being able to retain a very small percentage of any rents, and we agreed to take that under advisement only. The reason being is that the Riverfront project does have some debt service associated with it. We are not expecting to have this be a financial windfall for us. Certainly, it's much more of an indirect benefit than a direct benefit. But you know, there are a couple of different alternatives that we've been discussing with subtenants or ultimate tenants that may involve some incentive payments if they exceed their base revenue targets for a
Like what
particular
we had
month.
set up for the steak place where, or was it Orang's? That
Okay.
we got a portion of the profits?
Well, and I believe in all the leases that we've had with previously, they were based on gross revenues. We're not inclined to do that this time, but rather there would be a base square footage rental, which is a traditional way of doing it. However, you know, once a company or a retail restaurant meets their minimum sales for the month, then perhaps there is some additional rent that kicks in after that. It's all hypothetical at this point. My point, though, is that the CIC did wonder if there would be a way to retain a little bit of that so that they could start building assets in the CIC, which ultimately then comes back to the city in the form of redevelopment projects.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Ridley?
All my questions have been answered.
Okay. Anyone in the audience, any questions? Mr. Kerber, I would ask at this point, since I'm on the CIC committee, can I vote?
There's a special exemption in the law that allows you to be on that committee and vote.
Okay.
It's a special carve-out that allows that to occur. So
Okay.
the Ohio Revised Code indicates that that's not a conflict for you.
Good, thank you. Just wanted to be sure. All right, John?
Move forward with emergency.
Move forward with emergency.
Okay, let's move forward with emergency. Thank you. Anything else coming before finance?
No, sir?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Meeting